Hey guys, in this video we are going over knee pain when walking or running downhill or when going downstairs. Also, if you check out the link in the description, we are giving away a free information sheet on joint mobility, a different joint every week in the week of January, and it also comes with a program. Obviously, if you watch this video later than January, it will still be available. Just click on the link, sign up, and you should get your emails sent through. The reason this could be happening with a lot of you is because there could be a slight movement deficiency in hip extension, which is extremely common. We spend a lot of our days sitting down in hip flexion, and then we do a lot of training that is hip flexion, so things like squats or forwards lunges. So we're always moving in the same plane, but we're not necessarily moving in hip extension when the leg is behind the hip. So first of all, I'd like to show you guys how to test this for yourselves. Obviously, write into us if you're not sure about your results. They're not that easy to spot sometimes, but I'm going to try my best to show you how to test it in two different ways. And then we're going to show you some exercises that you need to mobilize and strengthen this movement pattern. All right, so the first test we're doing is standing up. You're going to want to pay particular attention to your hips staying level and not moving, and any kind of sensation of pulling you're getting at the front of the leg, and any pulling or pain you might be getting in the back. You also really want to film this so that you can see if your back is moving at all. Sometimes this is hard to spot, but any kind of movement whatsoever is important. So you are in hip extension when your leg is behind you, and there's a very big difference with your leg being behind you like this, with your back not moving, and your leg being behind you like this, with your back arching. So one way to test this is simply to put a camera over there on the side of you, and then bring your leg back as far as you possibly can. Now that doesn't mean, okay, obviously I could bring it a lot further if I move, but I mean as far as you can with your hips staying steady and your back staying where it was. So a pass would be your leg being able to go behind you without anything moving. If, say, you are moving your leg back and you're starting to feel a lot of tightness or pressure here, or there's any kind of movement in the back, that is a good suggestion that that is also happening when you're walking and running. Okay, so the next test is quadrupes. This one's a little bit easier to identify on a video. So you want your knees underneath your hips and your hands underneath your shoulders, and again the camera's going to be directly to the side of you. And from here, you're going to simply bring your leg up and see how far it can go without any back moving or without any tugging. So say you get over here and it's already pulling your leg, that would be a fail. If you can get up here with nothing moving and nothing pulling, that's great. Or you get up here and your back moves, that would also be a fail. So really you're aiming for your knee around and about in line with your hip. Ideally exactly in line with your hip, but a little bit lower is fairly normal. If your leg is way too far down, or if there's a lot of movement in the lower back and hips, then again, that's a good reason that's also happening when you're going downhill. So it's something that you should address in your training in order to then be able to do things downhill without compensations. So for this first exercise, we're doing a laying hip extension. To begin, you're going to tuck your hips under, squeeze your glutes, and push the ribs down to maintain a flat back. From here, we're going to bring the leg up and behind you by squeezing your hamstring and glute. The key here is to stop when you feel like you can't control the movement anymore. We're going to do 5 reps with a 1 to 2 second pause on each rep for 2 to 3 sets. When you record yourself, you can see if you're doing it wrong by if your hip is dipping forward and if your back is moving like this. In order to avoid this, you can actually help yourself by using a ball. Simply place the ball behind your knee and squeeze your heel towards your glute. While squeezing, lift up the knee in order to get into hip extension and hold for 1 to 2 seconds. Focus on squeezing this ball as hard as you can.
So next we're doing laying hip extension pails and rails. You can choose to first do a 2-minute hold, and then we are going to do 5 seconds pushing down while keeping the back flat. So tucking the hips under, pushing down and contracting, and then we're going to do the next 5 to 10 seconds of pulling up. So it's like you're trying to get the knee up off of the yoga block. If you're a beginner, I would recommend starting with just a 5 seconds pails and rails for 3 rounds, whereas if you've done this before, I'd go for a full 10 seconds times 3. If you have a very needy dog, then this can also be done without the ball. The ball just helps you feel. So just make sure that you're pulling your heel towards your glute and then pushing down with the knee. And then when you're coming up, you're pulling the heel towards the glute as you're bringing the knee up. And imagining the ball is there, it still should work.
Okay, so the next thing that I want to go over is the couch stretch. And a lot of people find this really, really difficult when they're first doing it and they've never done any hip extension work before. So we're going to start with the most progressed version, and the most important thing is for you to realize where you're feeling the stretch. So the easiest version would be to simply start kneeling, hold onto something or a wall so that you don't need to worry about balance, and you're going to be tucking your hips under and squeezing your glute as hard as you can. And at this point, you should feel something here as a stretch. If this is super easy, then you can go to the next step, and the next step would be lifting this foot up. So you can either hold it, or you can use a wall, because that way you can basically decide how far away from the wall you are, so basically how high your foot is. Start at a sort of medium level. From here, this is not what we're aiming for. If your foot is up and your hip is tilted and you can't get into the stretch fully, then that's not what you're looking for. But if you can, tuck your hip under, squeeze the glute, and you should start feeling it at the front of your hip. If this is too much and this is causing you to kink down, either go further down with your foot or simply do this version for longer until you get a little bit better at it. Eventually, what you're aiming for is to get your knee right up to the wall and your foot right up to your bum. Tuck the hip under, squeeze the glute, and be able to hold this and feel it in the right place rather than your hips kinking down. Okay, so next we're going to do pails and rails. You want to first start with 2 minutes in a stretch position at your end range. Once you do the 2 minutes, you're going to be doing 10 seconds pails, 10 seconds rails, 3 times. So to begin with, I'm going to tuck the hip under, squeeze the glute, and I'm going to be pushing my foot down the way. At this point, I'm going to be feeling a lot going on at the front of my hip here. So I'm going to do 10 seconds like this, and then the next 10 seconds is going to be trying to bring my heel closer to my bum. So I'm going to be squeezing like crazy, and then my hamstring is going to be starting to line up.
Okay, so for this next exercise, we're doing hip extension hovers. You can use a ball, or you can use something small, like even just a little bit of paper, so that you have something to go over. Again, we're going to tuck the hips under, squeeze the glutes, and push the ribs down, so you're not compensating in the lower back. And we're simply going to lift the knee over the object so that you're rotating slightly as you're coming out to the side and back into the middle. If you've never done anything like this before, I would recommend doing 5 reps and 2 sets.
I hope you guys found that useful. If you did, please subscribe. Can you wait? Just a second. You sit, wait, stay. Okay, stay. Eventually, okay, so if he's bouncing,
Lovely, I've got that. camera.
That's okay. So eventually you really want to sit, wait, wait, wait,